Hello, and welcome to the Everyday Business Problems Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Crysler. Each episode, we talk to business leaders and subject matter experts to learn about the challenges they've overcome and the challenges they still face. You'll hear fresh insights, real talk, and get inspiration to grow your business. Hey, everybody, and thanks for joining us on another episode of the Everyday Business Problems Podcast. Today, we're welcoming back Dan Bennett. Dan, thanks so much for coming back on the podcast. Excited to have you chatting all about looking better, sounding better on camera.
Appreciate it, man. I always figured that being a return guest on a podcast means you don't suck terribly. So feels good.
Well, that is for sure. And if you guys haven't listened to the first episode, we recorded that just over 4 years ago, shockingly. And you shared a ton about kind of your personal journey from an entrepreneurial perspective and, kind of the ups and downs and what it's really like in the trenches. We were a year into the pandemic at that point. So I'm excited to kind of have you back on and focus on the real work that you do, helping folks like me and other business owners, thought leaders kind of look better, sound better, through content. And I think it's so much more widely accepted these days. So I'm excited to get into it with you and just, kind of dive in, learn a bit more about what's been going on and, hopefully share some good stuff for the folks out there.
Yeah, it should be fun. I look at entrepreneurship kind of like the whole dog years thing, only maybe in reverse. So last time we talked, like you said, a little over 4 years ago, I was in a very different place. I feel like it was very infantile, and now I'm in preschool. So I got my bearings. I can walk. I can feed myself. So we're doing good. And hey, we're only 8 years into this thing, so
hey, man,
I guess I'm not doing too bad.
I heard this great, somebody shared this great kind of, quote the other day about something similar, but it's you're so early in the game, right? It's just, you're in the, the second inning of a game that's going into extra innings. So, it's entrepreneurship is like that. And, it's kind of like a great segue just to the first question, but, over that time and through your work of, working with folks like me, what kinds of things have changed, from a kind of video and content creation, just generally speaking, we're 4 years later, you've obviously been in the industry for a lot longer than that in terms of, kind of creating through video, but what kinds of things have changed recently that you're seeing out there?
It kind of reminds me of living through the book, The Tipping Point. And for anyone who's not read it, essentially it just talks about when something becomes popular, when that tipping point happens. And what happens before that is a lot of early adoption. And the people who adopt things early are usually weirdos like myself. So to think that this whole thing kind of kicked off in 2017 with, I was doing a bunch of corporate work, some film and television, a lot of government contracting. I was flying all over the country doing full video production. I'd come back to my home city of Flint, Michigan that I was born and raised in. Not a lot of money there, poor city, not a lot going on. I'd look at all the people in my dedicated office building around me and think man, I hate that they can't afford my day rates for production. I wish they had videos. And it just so happened at that same time where I was having trouble sleeping and it really wasn't fulfilling me, the work I was doing, even though it looks cool. I still use the logos on my website. I got some fun stories. It never really fulfilled me to work with those big companies. So I was making the transition from behind the camera to in front of it and realizing very quickly that that transition was easy for me because I had this filmmaking knowledge. And I was like, okay, I need to somehow instill this knowledge in other people without the jargon and the theory and making them feel like they have to become a filmmaker when really all they have to do is film themselves. And I think that that's doable. And I was just on a podcast recently with someone who's a mutual friend with me and the first person I ever did 3 Hour Studio with. We still work together. She's grown the video portion of her business as one of the staples of what she offers other companies. She was just filming in Texas where I currently reside recently. So I got to meet up for dinner, and then we edited all of her interviews that she filmed. And it was man, buying in and seeing the power of video over time. is awesome. So one of the things that I've seen change is it feels like that tipping point has happened and people are now willing to look beyond the expert, Dan, saying video is important, and look at the surroundings and go, oh man, I probably better get my stuff together and jump on this bandwagon. So it's a little easier to have conversations around video over the last couple of years because people just understand the power of it is inevitable. Gigantic platforms like YouTube are still in their infancy as far as what's
Yeah.
possible. Data's coming out, like YouTube just said, that more people are now watching YouTube videos on TVs than they are on their phones. So all of a
Interesting.
sudden, that was a huge one a couple weeks ago that came out, and it's 1 billion views a day on TVs now.
It's
So it's a lot
crazy.
easier for, I know, right? It's a lot easier for me to have a conversation with someone about how good do they look and sound if you're going to be on a
Yeah.
big old screen next to ESPN and HBO. I mean, literally inside the YouTube app, you can go to television stations and YouTube. So I'm not saying you have to spend $1 million an episode, but keep in mind you're on a bigger screen and you're being viewed right next to the big dogs. So
Yeah.
just so much buy-in has happened over the last 5 years that it's just easier to have conversations where people don't feel like I'm trying to sell them something. They feel like I might be a solution to a problem they've self-identified.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, it's been interesting to see, like, like obviously you have impacted my video quality and I see the stuff that you're still doing today. And, so it's a funny evolution being in the other side of that, seeing like, oh man, I gotta amp up my game, like I'm excited to kind of go through the process and, and retool because to your point, like, I think when you present yourself in that light, it really does take it away from the kind of virtual connection, and it's much easier to be present and to be kind of confident in that. And I think the other part of all of this, right, like specific to kind of the content side and not maybe so much like what we're doing here or showing up for clients, let's say, but is like the storytelling piece. And so like the video quality, how you sound, that's obviously important, but how does that then kind of weave into the storytelling element? Because again, back to your point of now we're showing up on bigger screens, like we not just have to look great, right, and sound great. Those are almost givens these days, right? But now we've got to bring in that storytelling element and really kind of put the third leg to the stool.
Yeah, yeah. What a great way to put it. That is exactly right. Storytelling is this word that's been unfortunately bastardized in online entrepreneurship for the last 15, 20 years or whatever. And I think people think about it and they're like, oh yeah, that's a thing I have to do. And you don't do stories, you tell them.
Yeah.
So although we can use frameworks and all those things, and we teach that as well, it's not a checkbox on a list of things to be doing. It's something you always should be doing. Like I'm literally doing it right now as we speak, talking about my own business, what's happened, how people respond to me, and how we help them. It's still a story. So one of the ways that because we help entrepreneurs, professionals, and some creators, but a lot of very like professional type folks who don't always consider themselves storytellers. Internally, our team calls it story bacon. So, like, we need you to get you to eat your Brussels sprouts. We're going to wrap it in bacon so you get the vitamins, but also it tastes good. And I think no matter the topic, no matter how boring something might seem, no matter what you're talking about, you can always wrap it in bacon. So, storytelling often in our work is taking the fictional framework, pick any poison you want as far as all the storytelling frameworks that exist. And instead of thinking about fiction, your favorite books, movies, novels, comic books, all the things, video games, you take real life, real experience, real expertise, and you shove that, you cram it into that framework. The framework still works because we know how to tell stories to each other. We've done it for millennia. But the content of that story now often is real life. We're talking about our product. We're talking about our clients. We're talking about ourselves. We're talking about a shift in our business that's happening and we want to let our audience know. So if you're going to say those things anyway, why not shove them into a storytelling framework? It's only one more step, and it might actually keep someone around when they click. And I think people sometimes too get lost in the story's got to be like, once upon a time, and this great adventure happened, and blah blah blah. We use the same storytelling frameworks in our 45-second daily short videos that we put out on LinkedIn and stuff as I do my like 8 to 10 minute YouTube videos. Exactly the same framework. You just got a little less time to dig into
Yeah.
each part. But it still works, you know? If all you're doing is telling someone you're running out to the store, you could say, "Hey, I'm going to get milk." Or you could say, "Hey, I'm taking the truck because my tire's low. I'm going to go grab some milk. Do you need anything while I'm there? I'll be gone for about 20 minutes. When I'm back, I'll take the trash out just so you don't have to worry about that." Like, you tell a story that now gives the context and content of the entire transaction instead of just, "I'm going to get milk." It's a choice because I'm going to get milk because to work. Yep.
Yeah.
See you in a minute. Bye. But depending on where you want your audience to go, which in this case is your partner understanding that you're not going to leave the trash to stink and you're willing to, grab something while you're out, and you've taken the good cars so they are kind of stuck, like all that
Right.
information ends up mattering. And I think that heavily about every piece of content we make. And I'll anyone listening or watching, it doesn't have to take hours. It literally can just be a little 5-minute dry run of what you're thinking about through the lens of a story, real quick. And again, pick your poison, pick your favorite, storytelling category, and just shove something into it and see how much better it becomes. And it's at the crux of everything we do as a company, which is interesting because we don't sell like a storytelling product, or we don't like talk about story as our main thing, but it
Right.
literally is the genesis of everything we do. And we're constantly tricking our clients into telling better stories. So instead of saying, "Do this thing and fill in these blanks and tell this story," we're just nudging them in the right directions and capturing things as we go that they're unaware of, because humans are natural storytellers anyway. So yeah, it's vital, man. And I
Yeah.
don't think people talk about it one layer deeper than just the word storytelling enough, like we just have for a couple minutes here.
I think, like, yeah, to that point, right? Like, it's it's almost like the phrase game changer these days, right? Like, I think about it in the same light, and I'm curious to get your perspective on this. From the kind of tech advancements, right? Like, everybody wants to talk about ChatGPT and all of the cool large language model stuff that's happening. I think I am bullish on the fact that, looking better, sounding better, and having this kind of interaction, right? Like, albeit virtual, but this meaningful dialogue back and forth, the ability to tell a story, the ability to connect in a real way, right? And all these elements coming together in that. That is going to be the differentiator as we continue to go into the future. So,
Yeah.
sure, we've got ChatGPT that can spit out a bunch of creative things, right? But I don't think that we are any closer to recreating our unique ability to connect with people through story, through video, through audio. Sure, we can maybe leverage some of those tools to help, or to maybe brainstorm some ideas around it. But I'm curious to see, like, get your perspective on that. Do you see folks that are just leaning heavy into that and kind of, like, trying to then put that into a teleprompter and just regurgitating it? Like, I'd love to just get your perspective, because I think we align from the underlying tone of that, but would love to hear what you think.
Yeah, we definitely think similar along those lines. I'm kind of in a fortunate position because most of the people I work with are coming to me asking me, "What do you think?" They're not coming to me saying, "This is how I'm going to do it," because most are looking for help and guidance.
Yeah.
So I don't have too many people that come in that are like, "I'm going to write every script with chat and I'm going to read it verbatim." They're generally like, "What do you think about AI and how you use it? How are you using it in your company?" Questions like you're asking now. Um, and it's funny. There's a video hosting platform called Wistia. Love those guys. We use them for a lot of reasons. And they put out a report every year called the State of Video. And they team up with really big companies that have a lot of data, including themselves. And they give data about, watch times, what kind of videos are working, and how are businesses using video, and all these things. So every time a report comes out, I'll make about 20 videos on it and use the parts that align with what we're already teaching to give more impact, because, hey, look, even the big dogs are saying this is what's
Yeah.
happening. And one of the things they hit on this year that they didn't hit on a lot last year was AI. And it was like a list of how AI is being used for video production in rank of what percentage of companies are using it for this reason. And, so of course I hit on that, and I was like, what's funny is all this does is prove what I've been saying for the last 2 years, which is what you just said in your question. It's not really the sexy, crazy, cutting edge stuff that really benefits you that much. It's the boring, unsexy, "Hey, I got this script. identify some holes in the script where I might be able to share something else or trim the fat or whatever, and it can do that, And so in a short video, I talk about how we use it, and the number one way that AI is being used in video by a margin is creating subtitles. And it's like, duh, you know what I mean? Like, of
Yeah.
course, this makes it so people who are deaf or hard of hearing can participate. It makes it so if the audio is off in the doctor's office, you can still read what I was saying in the video. It's a no-brainer, and by far, it's the most used AI. But you think AI, and it's like create an image or do a thing, and all that's doing is just putting words on the screen and doing it in a way that's entertaining. So, like I said, I'm fortunate that they're coming in looking for guidance. I can guide them in the way of AI is great. Let's use it for all the things that don't need storytelling and human touch. And another example we use it for all the time that a lot of my clients do too is, hey, chat, I got this video I'm doing, and it's 5 ways to have better confidence on camera. Here's my 5 ways. Give me 5 more. And it'll spit out 5 generic pieces of crap. And I'm like, give me 5 more. And then somewhere in those 10 or 15, there's one I didn't think of.
Yep.
And I'll go, ooh. And now I don't say, hey, chat, write me a script around that. I take that idea I hadn't thought of, and I put my own expertise and thought and process into it. And now my video is 6 ways to be more confident on camera instead of 5, because we used it for ideation development instead of give me the answer.
Yeah.
So I love it for that. I think people should double down on that. I think $20 a month is a no-brainer to have chat and to be able to bolster what you already do as a human instead of a robot that does stuff for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I say, like, it took me a really long time in this journey to figure out that the real value are all the stories, right? Like the stories, but what's underneath that, right? Like the hard lessons, right? Like, I shouldn't have gone right. I should have gone left. And, what did I take away from, deciding to go right? And what were the, circumstances that were, showing me that, oh, maybe right is a potential path here. And it sounds, almost obvious, again, like looking back, right? But it's never obvious at the time. And, so I love that though, but, kind of, again, not just looking for the answer. I equate a lot of what AI is doing for folks is like the same thing I see in business, right? It's like we've kind of been innately trained within our area of expertise, right, or process bounds, however you want to say it, but to seek efficiency. And I think what you just highlighted is the fact that, like, in our efficiency seeking, we want to jump right to the answer. And that's not the value of that, because, again, going back to, like, taking that step back and saying what we're collectively saying, it's like it's our ability to connect to other people. That will be the differentiator. And the tools that we do to do that, like the technology we're communicating through right now, and our ability to have cohesive thoughts and to carry on a conversation, that will continue to be the difference maker. I feel like for my lifetime, right? Like I can't see that changing. So
I don't either, and it's not because I think I know what's going to happen. It just feels like the way humans behave when new technology arrives. Like I was born in '80, so I feel like that's one of the best times, because I was like outside, skin on my knees, riding my bike, and then this internet thing came into a friend's house, and all of a sudden we were talking to people somewhere else in our town on a screen. It was like, oh wait. So I've been before and after it, so I've felt the full kind of change of the internet. And AI feels like a new version of that. So I'm lucky enough to be old enough to be like, oh, this is a lot like when search engines were new, right? So I can think about it in that way and just kind of be a voice of reason and let everyone run around like chickens with their heads cut off, because some of that stuff's going to pop. Some people are going to make millions and billions, all that stuff. But the average person is, going to be able to leverage this in a way that isn't that unique, but it is super helpful. So yeah, I think about this stuff a lot, and because video is kind of the last frontier of AI being able to do things that are good enough, to look at and go, whoa, that looks kind of real. I've had the most time to kind of think about it, chew on it, play with it, and all this stuff, because text was instant, images came next. Then there's like development of full systems and stuff. And now videos getting to the point where even Premiere Pro put out a thing where if your clip's a little bit short, it can generate like 4 more seconds of it to
Yeah.
extend it if you need. And I'm like, okay, I can see where this will come into the workflow. But even then, it's still just another set of hands. I think about AI as like 1 or 2 more bodies in the room looking at the same whiteboard
Yep.
I am and giving me their ideas, which are different than mine. And I'll speak to it that way. I'm like, hey, pretend you're sitting in here looking at this. I'll take a picture of my whiteboard, submit it. You're looking at this. I'm trying to solve this problem. What do you see that I don't see? And it'll
Yeah.
answer in those ways. I'm like, okay, that's cool. It
Yep.
doesn't mean it gave me the final answer. It just was a different viewpoint. And so that's helpful. Being a small team, and I spent a lot of time solo in my studio.
Sure.
So that's helpful too. So I definitely don't like poo-poo on it, but like I feel like the shininess of some of the things just gets way too many like smart, successful people distracted. That's the part that throws me off. Like, man, these people are like know better, and they're still like, ooh, a crystal in the window and the sun's out. Like, man.
I love it. Kind of like piggybacking off of that a bit, like what do you see as some of the, kind of challenges for folks that are in this, maybe adoption or early stages of video, or even like take it the opposite way? Like, what do you see for somebody like myself that's, like I've been doing video content now for, a number of years. What are some of the things that people are coming to you, like in that kind of second stage of, how do we amp up even bigger, right? Like how do we connect even greater? Like what are some of those things from a kind of challenge perspective?
I mean, that's a great question. I guess to the first part of when they're bumping into some of these new technologies and what should I be paying attention to and not, and all that kind of stuff. What AI, amongst other tools, a lot of great software tools have been developed where maybe they're using AI in the back end, but it's not an AI product. It's a software that does a thing for you
Yeah.
that helps. And they're looking at those things. And I think what it's doing is giving them a lens that makes it really, really acute that this stuff is hard. Making great video is hard. That's it. And there's no way around it. I mean, I've been on film productions, commercials, all, corporate government contract. It's always hard. Even when it's fun, goes relatively smoothly, and it's still so hard to make a great final product. And I think that like the promise of this thing does this and it saves you all this time, and then you use it and it kind of does that, but it doesn't do quite what you need. And it's just another lens to look through going, oh, there's no shortcuts. Dang it. This is actually hard. So
you're bursting bubbles out here, man.
I know, man. And it's weird because it's like it's two-sided sword, right?
Yeah.
Pun intended, I guess, bursting bubbles. Like one side is thank God, because now people are arriving already being like, wow, this didn't solve all my problems. I'm probably going to need to like have you help me build my studio and get some reps in and all this stuff. But then the other side is that they do feel a bit more like this is more out of reach than I thought, because it's been proven to me quickly that it's hard. It's no different than when someone's like, I'll edit my own stuff, and a month later they're like, screw this editing crap. Like, how do people do this? Because even when you get good at it, it takes a long time. So it helps because they show up in a better position for me to help them, but they also show up like grumpy. so it's kind of a win-loss, but mostly win type situation for me. And then, and this is a challenge to me, and I'll say it very openly. I am running into more people either through hot sauce editing, where they are very well established. They have an ROI on video. They've been doing it a long time. They make a lot of money from what they do. And we're stepping in trying to help them do better. And that reminds me of the film and television days. Like, this better be of this quality and broadcast, worthy, because X, Y, and Z, and there's money on the line and advertisers.
Yeah, real stakes in the game at that point. Yeah.
So through hot sauce, we're seeing that, and it challenges us to be even better than we were. We can't really coast. And then on the like, just kind of, building a studio and looking and sounding good, like you've done for yourself, which is awesome. Or then the strategy, which is our middle product of like, what do we do with these videos? I don't want to make videos just for video's sake. Where are they going to go? What job are they going to do for us? How do we measure it? Let's do the next video better because of that data. I'm being challenged way more now that it seems to be easier to have conversations about video with people because of the state of things. I'm also working harder mentally than I ever have, because there are people like you who, hopefully this is okay to say out loud on your show, like, we didn't work together. We just knew each other and talked about video, and you took tiny little steps and you built something that looks and sounds great. And from a distance, I'm like, hell yeah, because that's like the DIY-ness that I built my career on. You're
Yeah.
just like, I'll figure this stuff out. And from a distance, I got to watch and be like, dude, it looks and sounds so good, man. High five, great job. Um, then it's like, okay, cool. What's the next step? So the one thing, and it's not a fix all, but it is kind of a deficit in a lot of creators, individuals, entrepreneurs, professionals, whatever, that are making video. And that is, put a pin in that. We did our cohort for a full year. We did 5 runs. And I worked with a curriculum developer because I wanted my stuff to be good. It didn't have to be complex or in depth or crazy. It just needed to be good and easy for me to teach month in and month out. And as we were going through that process, I was part of her community, and we were building this curriculum in front of her community. And that's why she traded me some of her time to help me build at a way reduced rate than she normally charges. And I was fielding questions from her community. And these are like PhD people and business owners, and they weren't all just entrepreneurs. They were all kinds of professionals from all different backgrounds. And someone suggested doing the 5 whys thing, where you ask why and you ask why
Yep.
again, you ask why again. And so we took my current pain point list of all the things I'd ever heard anyone say about why video is hard or why they don't do it, and we 5 why'd every single one of them. And we started realizing that 2 or 3 whys in, lack of strategy kept popping up. So we got excited. We went back in front of the group the next week. We were talking, and the same woman, who's a little older than me, she was like, I don't want this to come across like I'm momming you, but why'd you guys stop at 2 or 3 whys? It's called 5 whys. Why did you not do 5 whys? I'm like, fair. Let's go
Yeah.
back to the drawing board, you know? And then we really started finding out that the ones, which were most of them, even things like I hate my own voice, still would come down to lack of strategy was the problem, because you don't have a strategy in place to either test, get used to your voice before you put stuff public, or use things to eventually get over it just enough where it doesn't bother you every time you hit record, whatever it is. There's a
Yeah.
lack of strategy. So we started really digging into everything, and we found that the whys got real hard, which they always do in 5 whys.
Oh, yeah.
After strategy, because it's like, well, why don't you have a strategy? And the next why often was like, well, because no one's ever told you needed one or offered you one. So then we built Solar System Methodology, our whole strategy platform and framework, because a lot of people just don't have a strategy. So oftentimes people look and sound good, they're great on camera, they make great things, and they might be like, why is the ROI not quite where I wish it was? Or why is my audience only this size? Or why am I not getting that many leads? You know, and then strategy starts to come into play. So it's not always the fix or cure all, but oftentimes it is the thing that's missing for that person that on the surface is like, got it all together. They look and sound good,
Yeah.
they're great on camera, they put out videos pretty prolifically. And then oftentimes it's like, well, where are we putting them? Why are they there? What did they lead to after someone watches it? And then what does the analytics say to try and make the next one better? And it goes right back to, it's a system in your business, just like any other system. And you just got to run it over and over, just like bookkeeping or sales or whatever, and modify it as you go, as things change. But of course, as you get better. So it's probably where I'd hang my hat, is strategy, when someone's already kind of like at level 2 and they're looking to go
Yeah.
to 3 and 4. Yeah.
I mean, that's a great answer. Like, unpacked a lot in that. And, like, first thing I'd say to all of that is, yes, like, we technically never worked together, but from my perspective, is a testament to the stuff that you put out from a helpful perspective, right? The fact that somebody that, like, and I've shared the before and after, right? Like, so, somebody that could look that bad and sound that horrific, and then watch some videos, like, have a couple of conversations and put themselves together, in a more, I get like, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back for the work I've done, because again, as I started this call said, like, I'm excited to retool the studio myself finally with a actual professional. But people still always say, like, you look amazing. It's like, well, like, you could replicate this very simply. Like, believe me, I'm, like, not an expert. So, so that's the first thing that I would say. It's a testament to the work that you do, but how you show up, how you tell stories, how you bring people into your world, like, that was how we ended up, like, connecting to begin with.
Yeah.
Like, that's the crazy part about all of this, right? And then, we're both Michigan guys, and like, and all the stuff, right? Like, from there, right? Friendship has blossomed since then. The other part that I would add on to the strategy piece is that I feel like storytelling, it gets lost. And it's not that people don't necessarily know that they need a strategy. I feel that there's a bunch of different ways to have a strategy, or to devise one. And it's like, well, where do I start? But I think what you said in there was really, really meaningful for people to pick up on. And the thing I picked up on in what you said is just that, why are we doing this, right? Like, it seems so simple, right? Why are we creating the videos? What's the ultimate goal with this video that I'm creating? Am I trying to build a presence on YouTube? And how am I leveraging that to build a community to, ultimately sell my services, or whatever the thing is, right? But starting from that perspective, just like you guys went through, right? I think that's the genesis of it all for us, because otherwise we're out here making content, we're trying to get leads into the funnel, and we're trying to get on sales calls, and we're trying to find opportunities to, share our expertise, or, if we're a product-based business, we're, trying to find opportunities to sell our product, or, what have you, right? But I think starting there and understanding, like, what are we doing this thing for anyway, right? It seems so obvious, but it's simple, not easy, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
why. I mean, two things when we talk about the solar system methodology with anyone, which is usually like in like a workshop environment, and I teach about it. And it's never to like at the end of a workshop sell it to people. It's just here's a way of thinking about content that
Yeah.
might help you out. And I always start when we actually do that work directly with someone who's bought the product with it's hub and spoke. I didn't invent it. It's just a framework that's been around for a long time and it works. And it's an easy way to put a bunch of stuff in an organized fashion to kind of see it from 30,000 feet. So I only say solar system because metaphor and analogy guy, it's easy to remember planets,
Yeah.
moon, sun, whatever. And the first thing we always work on, and the thing that changes the most throughout the work we do together, is the sun. It's the why. It's your North Star. It's like, why do you get out of bed in the morning? And it's different for everyone. Mine ultimately has become help entrepreneurs and professionals look and sound great on camera. Everything I create, do, teach, move, anything is to try to help entrepreneurs and professionals look and sound great on camera. That's it. So I don't
Yeah.
make content that has nothing to do with that. I don't give tips that don't help push someone in that direction. And that's my son. But sometimes someone's son could be, I do business to feed my family. 100%. Why? Well, because I grew up poor and I never want them to feel like that. Nah, no, we're getting somewhere. Why don't you want
Yeah.
them to feel like that? Well, because it stunted me and I didn't find, and I'm telling my own story here for no one picking up on this. Um, I didn't find success until like my 40s. A lot of people find it in their 30s if they're going to find it. And I think being stunted by growing up poor and having one parent and all the things that I would never change, and I love how I was, brought up, I think delayed some of the things that people pull off in their 20s and 30s. Well, why does that matter? Well, because I think with the potential I had and the brain and heart I had, I by the end of this whole life could have made a bigger impact if someone like me would have came into my life in my 20s. So you can totally dig in, and your son doesn't have to be something you make content about. It could just be the thing that drives you every single day. And those are hard questions to answer.
Yeah.
And sometimes they change over time, and you have to be okay with that too. um, it's making money can be fun, and selling a product easily can be fun, and tuning a system to work on its own can be fun. But again, bursting bubbles, it always comes back to like, this stuff's hard.
Yeah.
And on most days you're not like woohoo, you're like,
Yeah.
how do I solve this problem? So
Yeah, no, I mean, completely agree for a lot of different reasons. Um, one of the things that I see like specific to kind of, the sales process, and again, this is applicable for all different types of businesses, all different size businesses, but you see a lot of folks, some of them like you, super active on LinkedIn and, X, and you see a lot of folks talking about, automating this process, automating the outreach, kind of like phoning it in. And I think back to what we're saying, right? Like how to be authentic, how to tell stories, how to be present and real in what's happening in the moment, and not phoning it in. It's doing the work, right? Like it's grinding, it's getting the work done, it's doing an outreach, it's having a real conversation with somebody. And that doesn't mean like, how can I get this person on a sales call and close them? It's can I connect with this person? Do we align from a values perspective? Do we, like, do I have an ability to listen and maybe make an intro or to maybe influence what's happening? And, I think doing that, right? Like back to your point, it's like, why are we all showing up to do this stuff? And if that's not deep enough, it's going to really be difficult, and you're going to immediately want to, kind of go towards that next shiny object, or
Yeah.
this AI tool that can automate all of my outreaches and it'll send 50 connection requests a day, and isn't this great? It's like, no, that's all crap, and
Yeah.
you're not going to be successful with it. Okay, so
It's so good. God, you've triggered like 5 different things, and I can't go in every direction. But a fun little anecdote. For anyone familiar with chat, you can create your own little bots that do a specific thing, and all the information needed to do that thing's kind of wrapped up in it. So you can just treat it like a little robot, and it does a little thing for you. I have a cold DM snarky response bot. And every time I get a cold DM where they have missed the mark by 1,000 miles, I plug it into chat. I let my little robot come up with a snarky response that ends with me pitching them my services, and I send it back
that's
to them.
awesome.
And it entertains me. I'm not mean about it. I'm just a little snarky, a little cheeky, but not mean. And it gives me relief from the like, you got my name wrong. That's not even my business name. You called me this agency when I don't do that. I have services, whatever. And I'm always
Yeah.
like, you don't even like do the research. I bring that up because A, that's fun to do, but also B, it's every time that hits, it's more proof that I need to keep doing it the way I'm doing, which is building real relationships, which is
Yeah.
slow, which is hard. Everything comes back to that. And I don't want to, sound doom and gloom, because there's a lot of bright spots that come from doing that hard work. But I mean, anything, right? Like
Yeah.
you see a master craftsman of any kind, and the first thing they're going to tell you is like, well, it wasn't always like this. And I'm missing half this pinky because when I got into woodworking 25 years ago, I cut my finger off, like,
Yeah.
oops. There's always, those battle scars and stories and weight that you carry from the experience. And that's why we always, like to trick ourselves into thinking there's overnight successes, but most of them,
Yeah.
when you dig in, are 10, 20 years old, because nope, not everyone wins the lotto. So
Yeah. No,
but I think
completely agree.
people like us should talk about these topics more often because it's reality. And even in keeping it real, we can still say, but hey, it is fun sometimes. Hey,
Oh,
you
yeah.
do win sometimes. Like, hey, you do make an impact on other people. And that's kind of cool.
Yeah, all of that completely true, right? Like, and the other thing that I share, right? This is stuff that not just small businesses, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, SMBs, like this stuff, touches Fortune 50 companies. Okay, like that's the reality. You see these different things appear in a variety of different ways, right? But the things that we're talking about, like specific to looking better, sounding better, telling better stories, how to be authentic, like, don't you think that some of the, maybe CEO responses of some of the Fortune, 1,000 companies that we've seen play out in social media, don't you think that they could take a lesson out of this in terms of, kind of authenticity and understanding what the underlying issue is and why they're getting the feedback they are, right? Like this stuff touches everybody. That's the thing.
Yeah.
For me, that's like the most glaring. But again, to your point, not nobody talks about that, right? Like this stuff happens to everybody.
Yeah, man, I'm so glad you said that. I really am, because I talk about this quite a bit. And I was just on a podcast earlier, and we talked about this exact thing. And I get so excited thinking about it. Oftentimes when people in an environment like a podcast or something, they're like, what are your origins? How'd you get started doing this part of what you're doing or whatever? I always talk about kind of, where it came from and those sorts of things. And then generally somewhere towards the end, I'm like, what's really great about kind of kicking this thing off in 2017 and then 2020, everything shutting down and us seeing if we could help people build studios remotely. And then it worked. And it's like, holy crap, I think we could do this for almost anyone, and we started kind of moving forward. Is that from 2020 to 2025 right now, I have watched, it's been going on longer than that, but it's been really glaringly obvious over the last 5 years. I have watched corporation after corporation after faceless corporation do everything in their power and spend so much money on trying to seem human. User generated content, influencers, I don't know if you follow any of Duolingo online, but their like marketing over the last 6 months has been incredible, and it is wonky and weird and out there and worth talking about and fun to look at when the real product is learn a new language. Like
Yeah.
there's so much effort for corporations to seem human. And then when I work with someone, I'm like, hey, guess what? We don't have to pretend. We are human. So
Yeah.
we're so far away ahead of the big dogs because we can just show up, be us. Someone knows what it's like to work with Dan. Someone can get a vibe for what I'm like just through my content. Someone
Yep.
could get on a free strategy call with me and maybe get a glimpse of what it's like to be on a sales call with me. All those things can happen without me having to try to manufacture humanness to where all the big companies have to do that. And I think that's the proof that we're heading in the right direction with the work we're doing.
Yeah.
Is we're trying to stay ahead of that curve and really show humanity in the midst of AI, in the midst of large faceless corporations, in the midst of political turmoil. I think all of these things point towards tell better stories and be yourself. Like
Yeah.
that's the winning combination forever.
Yeah.
And close the book.
I love it. Yeah, and like what's crazy, just to tack onto that, and then I'm gonna hit you with 2 rapid fires, and then we'll wrap because but this has been amazing. I think you're starting to see little glimmers of that, right? Like I've seen it in politics. I've seen more kind of like this conversation coming to like TikTok, let's say, right? Politicians showing up on TikTok and actually being real and having conversations, and it not be super polished and, you know, reading from a teleprompter, right? Like I think you're starting to see some chinks in the armor, if you will, which is cool, right? Because to your point, this stuff is working. So yeah, a couple rapid fires for you. Essential tools for folks that, you know, are like, man, I got to get some of this. I need to polish up. I need to either look better, sound better, need to tell better stories. What's a couple of essential tools for that?
So if we work with a large company with a large budget, or we work with an individual who's got a little startup and they're just trying to make it work, we always start in the same spot, and that's audio. So essential is audio equipment, which nowadays, thank God, can be done very inexpensively. So the mic I'm using right now is 5 years old. I beat the crap out of it. It's straight USB into the computer. Don't have to muss fuss with anything else. Sounds great. I put it in front of my face. I do my work. On the other end, I'm holding up a little newer wireless lav system here. Clip one on your shirt, plug the other one into your smartphone. You have way better audio. So no matter how you do it, it can be done for about $120 in either case. Also, that's how you elevate video the fastest. When it comes to software, I think that the basics, the unsexy stuff is what works the most. So if you're using AI, use it to refine your ideas. Use it to write a script and then say, hey, could this script be better? Is there a storytelling element I could put in here? Or is there any holes in my script where you think I'm missing something? Or like we use Riverside that we're on right now, and we use it to subtitle all of our short videos. So if a video goes out for us on LinkedIn, our Monday through Friday short videos, you're going to be able to read them. And we use a little piece of software to do that. It doesn't have to be Riverside. It can be any software, but I think subtitling your videos is something people miss all the time. And it's just a couple of clicks nowadays. So it doesn't have to be that hard or technically that expensive. About $1 a day, you can subtitle every video you ever make. So I think that's great too. Beyond that is, so I'm going to give you a little exercise that I have my clients do all the time. There's a million of these, but just doing anything to give yourself some grace, but also critique your own work and get better over time, I think is invaluable. So if you picture the monkey, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, we do this exercise all the time. Film yourself with a smartphone. You don't need a fancy mic. You don't need anything. Just talk for 30 to 60 seconds about a topic you know and hit stop. It's just an exercise. First thing you do is turn the volume all the way down. You just watch it. See no evil. How do you move? Are your hands all over the place? Do they not move at all? Are you holding super still, or are you smiling and moving? You know, is this watchable with no audio? Would you change anything? Okay, now turn the phone away from you, turn the volume back up. Hear no evil. We're just going to listen now. How's your pacing? How's your inflection? Are you monotone throughout the whole thing? Do you get excited when you talk about exciting things and a little quieter when you talk about serious things? What could you do better there? And then speak no evil is to watch them all together and critique yourself. What could I do better? There, I could have waited another beat and let that point sink in with a little grin and then move on. And that might have made it a little bit more powerful. And I just run that. I still do it all the time. I run that hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil all the time on my own. And I always find something. And it's not about beating yourself up. It's just about finding the gaps. That could be any sort of self-reflective process, but that's a fun one that we have people do all the time. So that's a free one, your own tool.
Yeah,
and then software,
that's fire, dude. Like, that's
subtitles,
a great one. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, audio first, if you only got a little bit of money to start trying to increase your quality.
What about, we'll hit on this last one. What about from a storytelling perspective? What are maybe some mistakes to avoid? You touched on it a bit with the AI, kind of prompting and diving in from a, storytelling perspective, but any other ones jump out at you?
I think trying too hard. Again, if you said, "Hey, I'm going to get milk," and then someone's like, "Can you just ramp that story up a little bit?" You would add some color and some detail. That's it. So you don't have to write a 450-page novel. You can just amp it up a little bit, give it a little bit of color. So I think trying too hard sometimes is where we fail a little bit with storytelling, trying to make it perfect. And then I think the other thing is not trying at all, right? So again, you can put this in the show notes. We have a solar system methodology overview that's free to look at. And in there, I hit a little 7 storytelling content categories with 21 different kinds of story prompts that anyone can look at, try. It helps people when you're staring at a blank page and you don't know what kind of story to tell. And in there's like a breakdown of how the little storytelling prompt works, an example that I made up of a fake business that might say this sort of thing in their social media post and all that kind of stuff. And you start going through those exercises and you see like storytelling doesn't have to be that hard. It can just be the extra step of, I got something to say. Can we wrap it in some of that story bacon? And going back to the like, don't make it too hard. Could you wrap something in bacon and make the bacon look like a rose and glaze the bacon and make it pretty? Yes. You also could just slap some bacon around that thing and put a toothpick in it and it tastes delicious. So you don't always have to craft something that's going to like wow the world. But if you don't craft anything at all, you might just wow Zuckerberg and no one else.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, I'll make sure to put it in the show notes, but where should folks reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, try to make it easy. I bought a URL years ago. danhaslinks.com. It's just got a bunch of buttons with all my stuff, so it's easy to find me. So if you can remember Dan and the fact that he has links, remember danhaslinks.com. And I'm super approachable. You can talk with me on any platform.
I can attest to that. So Dan, thanks so much for coming back on the Everyday Business Problems podcast, man. Yeah,
thanks for having me. Like I said, getting asked back a second time means I'm doing something right. So I appreciate it.
Love it. Thanks, brother. Thank you so much for listening today. If we brought you any value, please rate, subscribe, and share our podcast. Also, be sure to connect with us on social media by searching @The Crysler Club. Until next week, I'm your host, Dave Crysler.